Hey guys, on our day 2. Okay, today I'm gonna do some more tongue twisters, and then I'm gonna read chapter 2 from this book of Willard Price. Okay, the reason I'm doing this is because I liked to I like to do presentations in Korean when I was in college, and what I did there was before I like stuttered and I didn't have the skills to present or make a presentation. So what I did was I went out there and got into some courses, and I learned the skills, practice, and I did the same things I do in these videos in Korean. So um, I'm gonna duplicate those skills in English, and I'm going to show you how I up my skills in the next 90 days. So I'll just start. Okay. Okay, let's do this. Peter Pe Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? I saw Susie sitting in a shoe shine shop. Where she sits, she shines, and where she shines, she sits. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Oh, and for you guys who are just wondering where where this site I'm using is, I'll give you the link below. Okay, and the book I'm gonna use today is Cannibal Adventure by Willard Price. I used to read this when I was in elementary school. I was in Malaysia at the time, so I was lucky enough to learn English, and I was lucky enough to meet a teacher who like told me how important education was and how important reading was. So thanks to him, I value education very much. That's why I went to college. But okay, to my dismay, um, the best education you could get, I think, isn't from the institutions like college. I think. Well, you might get, if you're gonna be a professor, you might want to go through that path. But I used to be a grad student, and what I wanted to do was earn money. So what I needed to do was learn how to make money, but I was only getting the theories on earning money. So these days I'm using Empower Network to learn how to make money. Okay, sorry for that. So once again, let's go. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? I saw Susie sitting in a shoe shine shop. Where she sits, she shines, and where she shines, she sits. I saw Susie sitting in a shoe shine shop. Where she sits, she shines, and where she shines, she sits. She sits. I saw Susie sitting in a shoe shine shop. Where she sits, she shines, and where she shines, she sits. How many boards could the Mongols hoard if the Mongols hordes got bored? How many boards could the Mongols hoard if the Mongol hordes got bored? How many boards could the Mongols hoard if the Mongol hordes got bored? How can a clam cram in a clean cream can? How can a clam cram in a clean cream can? How can a clam cram in a clean cream can? Send toast to 10 tense stout saints, 10 tall tents. Send toast to 10 tense stout saints, 10 tall tents. Send toast to 10 tense stout saints, 10 tall tents. Okay, I did up to number 5 here last time, so I'm gonna go up to like number 10 now. Okay, Denise sees the fleas. Denise sees the fleas. At least Denise could sneeze and feed and freeze the fleas. Denise sees the fleas. Denise sees the fleas. At least Denise could sneeze and feed and freeze the fleas. Denise sees the fleas. Denise sees the fleas. At least Denise could sneeze and feed and freeze the fleas. Koi knows pseudo noise codes. 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 Sheena leads. Sheila needs. Sheena leads. Sheena needs. Sheila needs. Sheena leads. Sheila needs. The 33 thieves thought they thrilled the throne throughout Thursday. 33 thieves thought they thrilled the throne throughout Thursday. The 33 thieves thought they thrilled the throne throughout Thursday. Okay. The last one here is something in 30-acre thermal thicket of thorns and thistles thumped and thundered, threatening the 3D thoughts of Matthew the Thug, although theatrically there was only 13,000 thistles and thorns through the underneath of his thigh that the 30-year-old thug thought of that morning. By Megan Despians. Okay, that was number 10, and there's a lot of people here. Actually, I'm in this like office. This guy, he's one of my mentors, and he's a great guy. He knows about media, and he knows about the networking effect. And the reason I like our products is because it has a networking effect. See, you learn how to market on the internet, and you market it on the internet. So you're marketing how to market on the internet. Isn't that brilliant? So, okay. Anyway, next I'm gonna read a passage from Cannibal Adventure by Willard Price here. Okay, these were one of the most favorite book series I had when as a child. I used to read them to school on the bus, in lunchtime. No, I wasn't one of the cool kids at the time, so what I did was read books and while having lunch. Although I wasn't like bullied because I was kind of big for my age. So I had a lot of fun reading these. I liked animals, so it's very exciting. It's exhilarating reading. It was exhilarating at the time, so it brings back memories. Okay, so number 2, magic. Okay, women and children screamed and ran to hide. A burly man beat an alarm on a huge wooden drum. Men burst out of the huts, armed with spears, stones, axes, bows, and arrows. With a war cry that echoed back from the surrounding mountains, they rushed forward, brandishing their weapons. Chills ran up and down two spines, for it was enough to terrify Hal as well as Roger. They had never seen anything like it. Some of the men wore skulls as ornaments. All had waving bird of paradise plumes in their kinky hair. Their bodies were covered with pictures of snakes, crocodiles, and centipedes, tattooed in many colors on their brown skins. They wore no clothing, unless you could call grass clothing. A tuft of long grass dangled in front of another behind. Their painted faces were ferocious. Every man looked like a horned animal because of the curved tusks of the wild boar that projected from each side of his nose. But if they expected their visitors to be so frightened, they would leap into the river and drown. They were disappointed. The boys stood still. Perhaps they were too scared to move. The captain also stood still, for he knew if they showed fear, they'd be killed. He had seen people like these before, many times in his 50 years of sailing these coasts. Instead of turning tail, he raised his hand and shouted something that evidently meant stop. Hearing a word in their own language, the men stopped, but they weren't ready to make friends. They brandished their weapons. What right had these three fantastic creatures on their shore? They looked in amazement at the schooner. It wobbled a little in the ripples. They seemed to be wondering whether it was alive. Was it some monster from the sea? They acted as if they had never laid eyes on any people like us, Hal said. Probably they never have, said Captain Ted. Hundreds of rivers come down from these mountains to the sea. Most of them have not been explored. You've never been up this river before? Never. Wouldn't be here now if it hadn't been for the storm. It's a bad place to be. Frankly, I don't know how we're going to get out of this mess. I'll speak to them. He did, but it had no effect. They answered angrily. They began to edge closer. They peered into the faces of the strangers. They could understand white faces because some of them painted their own faces white. Probably these three strange creatures had painted theirs, and the rest of their bodies would be brown. One suddenly seized Roger's shirt and ripped it off. A cry went up. The skin was white. Hal's shirt came up next, then Ted's. All white, like things that live under stones. That seemed to frighten them. They shrank back. They're superstitious, said Ted. They think we're gods or devils or something. He listened to the talk. Some say we are witch doctors. They're deathly afraid of witch doctors. Great! Exclaimed Hal. Let's be witch doctors. Perhaps a little magic will save our lives. Captain Ted looked blank. Magic? What kind of magic? Well, Hal said, to start with, you have false teeth, I believe. Show them how you can take them out. Captain Ted chuckled under his breath. Then he put on his most sober face and spoke to the crowd. What did you say? Hal said. I asked them to bring out their own witch doctor. Said I wanted to see if he could do what I can. Several men ran into the tambourine and opened the door. It was dark inside, but the boys could see dimly the rows of skulls on the shelves. In a moment, the village sorcerer came out, a large man of great dignity, tattooed from chin to toe. He advanced proudly, and the crowd melted away on both sides of him. His face was painted deep purple, and his eyes burned like lamps under heavy brows. He stood before Captain Ted and eyed him with utter contempt. There are good witch doctors and bad witch doctors, said the captain. This is a bad one. Now I'm going to ask him to prove his magic power by taking out his teeth. The sorcerer responded to the question with a blank stare. He could perform many feats of magic, but he had never before been challenged to take out his teeth. Ted translated his reply. No one can do that. The captain calmly reached out into his mouth and took out his lower denture, with a complete set of false teeth. The witch doctor pretended to pay no attention, but his people were greatly impressed. They crowded around to get a closer look. One grabbed the teeth, and they were passed from hand to hand. The captain looked worried. He wasn't sure he would get them back. Without them, he couldn't eat, but the last man to get them respectfully returned them. Ted stepped to the river's edge, washed the denture, and replaced it in his mouth. He said to Hal, Now it's your turn. Hal had no false teeth to take out. He must think of something else to do. How about fire? I want to talk with him, he said to the captain. Interpret for me, will you, Ted? With Ted translating, Hal carried on this conversation with the sorcerer. Can you make fire? Of course I can make fire. How quickly can you do it? Faster than anyone else. Faster than you can. Let me see you do it. Let me see you do it. To the man nearest him, the magician said, Get me a piece of bamboo. And to another, Get me some dry grass and dead leaves. And to another, Get me a sharp stick. When these materials were brought, he placed the bamboo on the ground, crushed the grass and leaves into a powder, which he placed on the bamboo, then scraped the pointed stick back and forth through the dry powder. It was an ancient method of making fire that had come down through the ages to the Boy Scouts. For several minutes he scraped the stick back and forth. It took muscle and patience. Finally, there was a faint spark, then a tiny flame. The whole process took about 5 minutes. He looked up with an evil smile. Can you make fire faster than that? Hal took a match from his pocket, scratched the match on his trousers, and burst into flame. It had taken 2 seconds. Someone grabbed the matches, and soon all were scratching matches all over their bare skin and getting fire. Their hide, toughened by exposure, was almost rough as cloth. As quickly as he could, Hal got back what were not left of his matches. He feared that the delighted men, in their excitement, would set fire to their village. "The young one," cried one of the men, pointing at Roger. "Is he a witch doctor too?" The sorcerer laughed scornfully. "He's too young. It takes many years to learn this art." Roger whispered to his brother, "That little mirror you use for shaving, let me have it." The mirror was very small, and Hal passed it over in the palm of his hand without anyone being in the way.
얼마냐? 그렇게 얼마나 써요?
잠깐만요.
뭐 하시는 거예요?
저 잠깐 녹화 중이라서. Sorry about that. Someone I knew just came in, so they said hi. Okay, I'll go on and read the rest of the passage. The sorcerer held the bowl in both hands and looked down into it. He saw a very faint image of his own face, faint and jumpy because of the little ripples running over the water. He looked up with a satisfied smile. He held the bowl so Roger could look into it. Roger had to admit that there was a slight reflection of his face, but so unsteady that he could not tell an ear from an eye, or an eye from his mouth. Roger drew out the mirror and held it before the sorcerer's face. The image was sharp and clear. It was the first time the savage had really seen himself. He drew back in disgust. He had never before realized how ugly he was. Another man seized the magic glass and gasped in astonishment when he saw himself. The mirror was passed around, then returned to Roger with respect, for he must indeed be a greater magician than their own if he could make 2 faces where there was only one before. The 3 mighty magicians from the outer world were now accepted as honored guests. The women were called out from the huts and were ordered to lie down. They lay down side by side, and the row of bodies reached all the way from the water's edge to the door of the tambourine. The men bowed to the visitors and waited for them to act. "What's the idea?" Roger asked the captain. "What do they want?" "They want to welcome us to their village. This is their way of doing it. We're supposed to walk over the women." "We can't do that," objected Hal. "Hal, don't they have any respect for their women?" "Not much." "Why, there must be 50 women in that line." "Tell them we won't do it." "That would be a serious mistake," Ted replied. "They'd be insulted. Think how it'd feel if you wanted to welcome someone to your home, and you refused to shake hands with you. You'd be surprised and offended. You can't afford to make these people angry just when they're doing their best to be friendly. Walk over the women." "You go first," Hal said. "I bet you can't do it." "I can, because I must." "So must you." The captain took off his shoes and carried them in his hand. He hesitated a moment. Then he stepped gingerly on the first brown body. A little cry came out of it, for the captain was heavy. He stepped as lightly as possible on the second and on the third. Each time there was a little squeak of pain, but the bodies lay still. Roger prodded Hal. "You're the next one to be honored." "Why me?" "You go ahead." "Not on your life. I know my place. I wouldn't be so impolite as to go ahead of my honorable big brother." Hal said, "Look out that your honorable big brother doesn't punch you in the nose." He removed his shoes, socks, gave his feet a quick wash in the river, then stepped out carefully on the human bridge. He hated every step, but he tried to look pleased. After all, he must seem to enjoy this fine welcome. It was Roger's turn. He didn't need to take off his footgear, for he was already barefoot, as always on the deck of the flying cloud. He had a boy's dislike of bathing, but his feet needed washing even more than Ted's or Hal's. He gave them a quick dab. Then he ran, not walked, over the bright brown pavement to the spirit house. By running, he hoped to put as little weight as possible in each body. Not only were there no squeaks of pain this time, but these women actually smiled up at him as he passed. Whoa. Okay, so that was the end of chapter 2 in Willard Price's Cannibal Adventure. Check the book out if you want to read it. It's quite amusing. It's about these two brothers. Actually, their father comes in the stories in the series, but in this book, the brother and two brothers and a captain, they go to New Guinea in the South Pacific, and they're there to capture animals, and on the way they as you just heard in chapter 2, they're just encountering some cannibal tribes, and it gets better from there on. So if you're interested, read Cannibal Adventure by Willard Price. Okay, so once again, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to improve my presentation skills and my video skills in English, and I think I've done that in Korean already, because I've always loved presentation. So I took a lot of courses in presenting myself, how to use my body to talk more effectively, how to present with more compelling content. But I'm new to this. I've never done videos or anything, so also I haven't done much presentation in English, so I'm trying to duplicate my skills in presentation, which I've earned in the Korean language, in English. So I'm gonna do what I did to improve my skills in Korean right over in English, so that every day I improve a little more. So guys, if you want, follow me day by day, and what you need to do right now is do some tongue twisters every day and read a passage from a book. It doesn't have to be Cannibal Adventure from Willard Price. It can be any book you like. So pick up a book, read a passage in front of the camera, and do some tongue twisters, and you'll get better every day as you do it. Okay, so that's it for this video, and see you on the next one.